Summary of why A students work for C students and why B students work for the government. Rich Dad's Guide to Financial Education for Parents by Robert T. Kiyosaki ***. In Rich Dad's Guide to Financial Education for Parents, Robert T. Kiyosaki shares insights into the relationship between education, financial literacy, and career success. One of the provocative ideas he discusses is why A students often end up working for C students, while B students are more likely to work in government roles. Robert Kiyosaki delivers a compelling critique of the traditional education system and a passionate call to parents to take charge of their children's financial education. Published as a guide to help parents awaken their child's financial genius, the book draws heavily on Kiyosaki's personal experiences, particularly the contrasting lessons from his rich dad and poor dad, as introduced in his earlier bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Through a blend of storytelling, economic analysis, and actionable advice, Kiyosaki argues that the absence of financial education in schools leaves children ill-prepared for a world driven by money, debt, and capitalism. He emphasizes that parents must step in to teach their children how to navigate this reality, fostering entrepreneurial skills and financial independence rather than reliance on jobs or government entitlements. The core premise: an educational crisis. Kiyosaki begins by asserting that the world faces not just a financial crisis, but an educational one. He opens with a quote from Albert Einstein: "Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." This sets the tone for his argument that schools fail to recognize and nurture the unique genius in every child, particularly when it comes to financial literacy. He questions why money, a central force in modern life, is not a subject taught in schools. Instead, schools prioritize academic and professional education, training students to become employees, A students as academics, or B students as bureaucrats, rather than entrepreneurs or capitalists, C students. Kiyosaki illustrates this with the metaphor of Hans Christian Andersen's The Emperor's New Clothes. Just as the emperor paraded naked while townspeople pretended he was clothed, the education system pretends to prepare children for the real world while ignoring financial education. The result is graduates who are naked in their understanding of money, debt, taxes, and investments, leaving them vulnerable in an economy marked by accelerating change and financial instability. The American Dream and the Entrepreneurial Spirit. Drawing on research by pollster Dr. Frank Luntz, Kiyosaki highlights a disconnect between what Americans want and what schools provide. Luntz's surveys reveal that 80% of Americans aspire to own a business employing 100 or more people, yet the education system trains students for corporate jobs or government roles. This misalignment stifles the entrepreneurial spirit that historically fueled the American dream, starting something from scratch and nurturing its growth. Kiyosaki argues that schools produce managerial capitalists, employees like CEOs who manage but don't own businesses, rather than true capitalists, entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, many of whom never finished school. He cites the 2008 Hostess brand's bankruptcy as a case study in the failure of managerial capitalism. The company's closure, driven by union demands and executive bonuses, affected 18,000 workers and their families, illustrating the ripple effects of prioritizing short-term gains over long-term sustainability. Kiyosaki contends that such outcomes stem from a lack of financial education, which breeds greed over generosity and entitlement over self-reliance. The role of parents: awakening financial genius. Kiyosaki's central message is that parents must become their child's most important teachers, especially in financial matters. He recounts his own education under his rich dad, who used the game of Monopoly to teach him capitalist principles like investing in real estate. These lessons, starting at age 9, gave Kiyosaki an unfair advantage over his peers who were taught by his poor dad to prioritize academic success and job security. He encourages parents to create a wealth education night at home, using games like Monopoly or Kiyosaki's own Cashflow to make learning about money fun and experiential. The book is structured in 4 parts, each building on the idea that financial education is a lifelong process that begins at home. Part 1 diagnoses the educational crisis, Part 2 explores the skills needed for financial success. Part 3 addresses the emotional and spiritual aspects of wealth building. And Part 4, titled Graduate School for Capitalists, offers advanced strategies for printing your own money. The 3 types of income and 4 types of money. A key concept in the book is the distinction between 3 types of income: ordinary, earned through jobs; portfolio, from investments like stocks; and passive, from assets like real estate. Kiyosaki explains that the rich focus on portfolio and passive income, which are taxed at lower rates, as illustrated by the tax disparity between President Barack Obama, 20.5% on $3 million in ordinary income, and Mitt Romney, 14% on $21 million in portfolio income. This insight underscores why A students who pursue high-paying jobs often work for C students who build wealth through investments. Kiyosaki also outlines 4 types of money: commodity, e.g., gold; reserve, backed by assets; fractional reserve, lent beyond deposits; and fiat, government-declared currency. He argues that the current financial crisis stems from fiat money, which governments print excessively, leading to inflation and higher taxes that disproportionately harm the poor and middle class. To counter this, he advocates being the Fed, creating personal wealth through entrepreneurial ventures and investments that generate cash flow and convert fiat money into commodity money like gold. Be the Fed, printing your own money. In Part 4, Kiyosaki details his process for printing money, a metaphor for generating wealth through entrepreneurial and investment strategies. He shares his journey from a struggling entrepreneur to a successful capitalist, emphasizing 10 steps, including becoming an entrepreneur, building a team of advisors, understanding debt, and investing in real estate. He recounts how he and his wife, Kim, started the Rich Dad Company with $250,000 in investor funds, repaid the investment, and now enjoy infinite returns from global operations. In real estate, they use fractional reserve money, borrowing from banks to leverage investments, and aim for 100% debt-financed properties to achieve infinite returns. Kiyosaki stresses that this process requires emotional intelligence, ethical standards, and continuous learning. He warns that schools teach students to park money in savings or retirement accounts, while capitalists keep money moving through investments. By reversing the history of money, starting with fiat money and converting it to commodity money via cash-flowing assets, parents can teach children to build wealth that withstands economic turbulence. The future of education and the role of technology. Kiyosaki envisions a future where technology transforms education, making it more accessible and relevant. He compares modern entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates to historical figures who democratized industries, suggesting that mobile devices and online platforms can turn every home into a first-rate university. However, he cautions that schools, burdened by long lag times and union resistance, are slow to adapt. This makes parental involvement critical in preparing children for an information age marked by accelerating acceleration. He also critiques the growing entitlement mentality, linking it to the lack of financial education. Programs like Social Security and Medicare, while well-intentioned, foster dependency when people are not taught to create wealth. Kiyosaki argues that true generosity, creating jobs and opportunities, outweighs government handouts, which often perpetuate poverty. Conclusion: a call to action for parents. Why A students work for C students is both a critique of systemic failures and a hopeful guide for parents. Kiyosaki challenges the myth that academic success guarantees financial security, pointing to rising college costs, student loan debt, and youth unemployment as evidence. He empowers parents to fill the gap by teaching children to think like capitalists, embrace mistakes as learning opportunities, and see the world from multiple perspectives, the 3 sides of every coin. By fostering a home environment that celebrates experiential learning, parents can help their children discover their financial genius and pursue their dreams, whether as entrepreneurs, investors, or innovators. The book's strength lies in its blend of personal narrative, economic insights, and practical advice. Kiyosaki's storytelling, rooted in his contrasting dads, makes complex financial concepts accessible, while his urgency resonates in a world of economic uncertainty. However, Critics might argue that his emphasis on entrepreneurship overlooks the value of traditional careers or the systemic barriers some families face. Nonetheless, his message is clear. In a world where the emperor of education is naked, parents hold the power to dress their children in financial wisdom. In his final thoughts, Kiyosaki reflects on the transformative potential of financial education, quoting the greatest love of all. "I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way." He thanks parents for caring enough to invest in their child's financial future, urging them to create a home classroom where love, learning, and curiosity thrive. By doing so, they can give their children an unfair advantage, not just to survive, but to lead in a rapidly changing world. Here are the key reasons Kiyosaki outlines in the book. 1. Different mindsets about money. Understanding, applying, and examples. Robert Kiyosaki emphasizes that the way people think about money profoundly shapes their financial outcomes. He argues that different mindsets, rooted in the lessons from his Rich Dad and Poor Dad, determine whether individuals become employees, bureaucrats, or capitalists. These mindsets are not just abstract beliefs, but practical approaches to money that parents can teach their children through action and example. By exploring these perspectives, Kiyosaki illustrates how to shift from a scarcity-driven, job-focused mindset to one that embraces wealth creation and financial freedom. The Poor Dad mindset, embodied by Kiyosaki's highly educated but financially struggling father, views money as a means to survive through a secure job. Poor Dad believed in academic excellence, climbing the corporate or bureaucratic ladder, and saving diligently. He advised, "Go to school, get good grades, and find a high-paying job." Money, in this view, is earned through hard work and parked in savings or retirement accounts for safety. This mindset prioritizes stability over risk, often leading to a life of financial dependence on employers or government programs. For example, Poor Dad saw his home as an asset, unaware that its mortgage was a liability, a belief that trapped many in the 2007 housing crash. In contrast, the Rich Dad mindset, taught by Kiyosaki's best friend's father, treats money as a tool for building wealth through assets and entrepreneurial ventures. Rich Dad taught that the rich don't work for money, they make money work for them. He emphasized acquiring assets, real estate, businesses, or investments that generate passive or portfolio income, rather than relying on ordinary income from a job. This mindset embraces calculated risks, leverages debt to acquire cash-flowing assets, and seeks tax advantages. Rich Dad's lessons began with Monopoly, where buying 4 greenhouses to trade for a red hotel mirrored real-world real estate investing. He taught Kiyosaki to see money not as something to hoard, but as a resource to multiply through strategic action. To apply these mindsets, Kiyosaki encourages parents to create experiential learning opportunities at home. For instance, a parent might take a child to a grocery store to discuss budgeting, showing how the Poor Dad mindset might focus on cutting costs, while the Rich Dad mindset might explore how to increase income through a side hustle. Another example is setting up a lemonade stand, where a child learns to print money by exchanging value, lemonade, for cash, embodying the entrepreneurial spirit. Parents can also play cash flow, Kiyosaki's financial education game, to simulate investing in assets versus liabilities, fostering the Rich Dad mindset of wealth building over wage earning. Real-world examples abound in Kiyosaki's own life. His Poor Dad, despite a PhD and a high-ranking job, struggled financially because he saved fiat money, losing value to inflation. Meanwhile, Rich Dad built a real estate empire, starting with greenhouses, rental properties, and culminating in a red hotel on Waikiki Beach, using bank loans to amplify returns. Kiyosaki himself applied this mindset by founding the Rich Dad Company, raising $250,000 and turning it into millions in passive income, all while paying lower taxes through strategic investments. These examples show how the Rich Dad mindset turns ideas into assets, while the Poor Dad mindset remains tethered to a paycheck. Ultimately, Kiyosaki urges parents to teach children to adopt the Rich Dad mindset, viewing money as a tool for freedom, not a source of security. By modeling this through discussions, games, and real-life experiences, parents can help their children escape the employee trap and embrace the capitalist path of creating wealth. 2. Lack of financial education. Addressing the gap with practical steps and examples. Robert Kiyosaki identifies the lack of financial education in schools as a root cause of economic struggles, leaving generations unprepared for a world driven by money, debt, and capitalism. He argues that schools focus on academic and professional skills, training students to be employees or bureaucrats, while ignoring the financial literacy needed to thrive as entrepreneurs or investors. This gap, Kiyosaki asserts, contributes to crises like the 2007 subprime mortgage collapse, rising student loan debt, and growing dependence on government entitlements. Through his narrative, he empowers parents to bridge this gap at home, using experiential learning and real-world examples to teach children the financial skills schools overlook. Kiyosaki illustrates the consequences of this educational void with stark examples. The 2007 housing crash, he notes, was partly fueled by homeowners who believed their homes were assets, unaware that mortgages could become liabilities, a misconception rooted in financial ignorance. Similarly, he points to the trillion-dollar student loan crisis, where graduates, burdened with unforgivable debt, face lifelong financial strain due to a lack of understanding about loans and their long-term impact. He also cites the growing entitlement mentality, with millions relying on Social Security and Medicare, as evidence of a society taught to expect handouts rather than create wealth. These examples underscore his claim that without financial education, even students are left naked in the real world, vulnerable to economic pitfalls. To address this, Kiyosaki urges parents to become their child's primary financial educators, creating a home environment where money is demystified. One practical step is to establish a wealth education night, where families play games like Monopoly or Kiyosaki's Cashflow to simulate financial decisions. For instance, a child playing Monopoly learns to invest in properties to generate passive income, mirroring real estate strategies. Another approach is to involve children in real-life financial activities, such as visiting a coin shop to discuss gold and silver as hedges against inflation, or reviewing a family budget to understand expenses versus investments. These activities make abstract concepts tangible, fostering a mindset that sees money as a tool for wealth building. Kiyosaki's own story serves as a powerful example. His poor dad, a highly educated superintendent, lacked financial literacy and struggled despite a stable job, saving money that lost value to inflation. In contrast, his rich dad taught him financial principles through Monopoly, showing how to turn green houses into a red hotel by investing in real estate. This education enabled Kiyosaki to start the Rich Dad Company, leveraging $250,000 into millions by understanding cash flow and tax strategies, skills absent from traditional curricula. He also shares how he took his son to collect rent at age 10, a lesson his poor dad found cruel, but which taught young Kiyosaki the reality of income-producing assets. By integrating financial education into daily life, parents can counteract the school system's shortcomings. For example, a parent might encourage a teenager to start a small business, like selling crafts online, to learn about revenue and expenses. Or, during a trip to a bank, they could discuss how loans work, contrasting good debt, used for assets, with bad debt, for liabilities. These lessons, Kiyosaki argues, prepare children to navigate economic challenges, from inflation to taxes, with confidence and creativity. Ultimately, Kiyosaki's message is that the lack of financial education is a solvable problem, but it starts at home. By teaching children to understand money, invest wisely, and think like capitalists, parents can equip them to not just survive, but thrive in a world where financial literacy is the key to freedom. 3. Emphasis on compliance versus creativity, fostering innovation and examples. Robert Kiyosaki critiques the traditional education system for prioritizing compliance over creativity, a practice that stifles the entrepreneurial spirit and financial genius in children. He argues that schools train students to follow rules, memorize facts, and conform to standardized expectations, producing A students, academics, and B students, bureaucrats, while undervaluing the creative, risk-taking mindset of C students, capitalists. This emphasis on compliance, Kiyosaki contends, prepares children for a world of obedience and job security, not the innovative thinking needed to thrive in an ever-changing, money-driven economy. He urges parents to nurture creativity at home, encouraging children to question, experiment, and innovate to unlock their potential as wealth creators. Kiyosaki illustrates the compliance-driven education system with his own experience as a C student. His poor dad, a school superintendent, valued academic success and adherence to rules, believing that good grades and a stable job were the path to prosperity. In contrast, his rich dad celebrated creative problem-solving, teaching Kiyosaki through games like Monopoly to think outside the box, turning greenhouses into a red hotel through strategic real estate investments. Schools, Kiyosaki argues, reward students for knowing the right answer, e.g., Columbus discovered America in 1492, rather than for taking action or exploring new ideas, as Rich Dad did by encouraging Kiyosaki to learn by doing. This compliance focus, he warns, leaves graduates ill-equipped for a world where innovation drives wealth. To foster creativity over compliance, Kiyosaki advises parents to create a home environment where mistakes are learning opportunities and questioning norms is encouraged. One practical step is to use games that stimulate creative thinking, such as Cashflow, where children experiment with investment strategies without real-world consequences. For example, a child might learn to creatively balance risk and reward by choosing to invest in a business rather than save money in the game. Another approach is to encourage entrepreneurial projects, like a lemonade stand, where kids innovate by tweaking recipes or marketing tactics to attract customers. Parents can also model creativity by discussing family financial decisions openly, showing how they solve problems unconventionally, perhaps by investing in a rental property instead of a traditional savings account. Kiyosaki's life provides vivid examples of creativity triumphing over compliance. His poor dad, bound by academic rules, struggled financially despite his education, adhering to the compliant path of saving and working for a paycheck. Rich Dad, however, built a real estate empire by creatively leveraging bank loans and tax laws, ignoring conventional advice to get a job. Kiyosaki himself embraced this mindset when he started the Rich Dad Company, innovating by self-publishing Rich Dad, Poor Dad after rejections from compliant publishers who dismissed his ideas. His nylon wallet business, born from sewing old sails at the Merchant Marine Academy, is another example of creative problem-solving, turning discarded materials into a profitable product. Parents can apply this by encouraging children to pursue passion projects that require creative solutions. For instance, a teenager might develop an app, learning to code and market it, navigating setbacks with innovative tweaks. Or, during a family trip to a real estate office, a parent might ask a child to brainstorm ways to improve a property's value, fostering creative thinking over rote answers. By valuing experimentation over perfection, parents can help children see challenges as opportunities to innovate, not obstacles requiring compliance. Kiyosaki's core message is that creativity, not compliance, unlocks financial freedom. In a world of accelerating change, parents must counter the school system's rule-bound approach by nurturing their child's ability to think independently, take risks, and create value, ensuring they don't just follow the emperor's parade, but rewrite the story altogether. 4. Job security versus financial independence. Building wealth beyond a paycheck. Robert Kiyosaki challenges the conventional pursuit of job security, arguing that it often traps individuals in a cycle of dependency on employers or government systems. He contrasts this with financial independence, a state where income from assets, such as real estate or businesses, frees people from the need to work for a paycheck. Kiyosaki asserts that schools, by emphasizing academic success and stable careers, groom A students for corporate jobs and B students for bureaucratic roles, while C students, often entrepreneurs, chase financial freedom. He urges parents to teach children to prioritize financial independence, equipping them to thrive in an unpredictable economy through strategic action and a wealth-building mindset. The allure of job security, Kiyosaki explains, stems from his poor dad's philosophy: study hard, get good grades, and land a steady job with benefits. Poor Dad saw a paycheck and pension as the ultimate safety net, a belief that left him financially vulnerable when savings dwindled against inflation. This mindset, reinforced by schools, equates security with a single income source, an employer, ignoring risks like layoffs or economic downturns. Kiyosaki cites the 2008 Hostess brand's bankruptcy, where 18,000 workers lost jobs due to mismanagement, showing how job security can vanish overnight. In contrast, financial independence, taught by his rich dad, relies on creating multiple income streams through assets. Rich Dad's mantra, "Make money work for you," emphasizes investments that generate passive income, offering freedom from the constraints of a 9 to 5. To shift children toward financial independence, Kiyosaki encourages parents to integrate wealth-building lessons into daily life. One practical step is playing games like Cashflow, where kids learn to escape the rat race by investing in businesses or properties rather than relying on a job. For example, a child might discover that buying a stock in the game yields dividends, mimicking real-world passive income. Parents can also involve kids in real-life ventures, like a family rental property, where collecting rent teaches the power of assets over wages. Another approach is discussing the family budget, contrasting the poor dad's focus on earning and saving with the rich dad's strategy of investing in income-generating opportunities, such as a small business. Kiyosaki's own journey exemplifies this contrast. His poor dad, despite a PhD and a government job, struggled because he tied his security to a single paycheck, never building assets. Rich Dad, however, achieved financial independence by acquiring rental properties, using bank loans to create cash flow that outpaced his expenses. Kiyosaki followed suit, starting the Rich Dad Company with $250,000 in investor funds, which he turned into millions in passive income by leveraging publishing and seminars. Another example is his nylon wallet business, sparked by creative hustle at the Merchant Marine Academy, which generated income independent of a traditional job. Parents can foster this mindset by encouraging entrepreneurial experiments. For instance, a teenager might launch a lawn mowing service, learning to scale it into a small business that generates income without constant labor. Or, during a family visit to a financial advisor, parents can prompt a child to ask about stocks or real estate, sparking curiosity about assets. By emphasizing financial independence, parents teach children to see jobs as stepping stones, not destinations, and to build wealth that withstands economic shifts. Kiyosaki's message is clear. Job security is an illusion in a volatile world, but financial independence offers true freedom. By guiding children to create their own income streams, parents can help them break free from the employee mindset and embrace the entrepreneurial path of the C student. 5. The importance of networking and relationships. Building wealth through connections. Robert Kiyosaki underscores that financial success hinges not just on knowledge or hard work, but on the power of networking and relationships. He argues that while schools emphasize individual achievement, rewarding A students for solitary academic prowess and B students for bureaucratic loyalty, C students, often entrepreneurs, excel by building strong networks of mentors, partners, and advisors. These relationships, Kiyosaki explains, provide the insights, opportunities, and support needed to navigate the complex world of money and achieve financial independence. He urges parents to teach children the art of networking, fostering skills to forge meaningful connections that unlock doors to wealth. Kiyosaki's rich dad taught him that your network is your net worth, a lesson rooted in the idea that wealth is built through collaboration, not competition. Unlike his poor dad, who relied on credentials and a single employer, Rich Dad surrounded himself with experts, accountants, lawyers, and investors, who amplified his real estate ventures. Kiyosaki illustrates this with the 2008 financial crisis, where well-connected C students, like savvy investors, leveraged relationships to secure deals on foreclosed properties, while isolated, A students struggled with job losses. He argues that schools, by focusing on grades over teamwork, fail to teach the interpersonal skills critical for financial success, leaving graduates unprepared for a world where who you know often matters as much as what you know. To cultivate networking skills, Kiyosaki advises parents to create opportunities for children to build relationships early. One practical step is encouraging participation in group activities, like a community business club or a school entrepreneurship program. where kids learn to collaborate and share ideas. For example, a child in a robotics club might partner with peers to pitch a project, practicing negotiation and trust building. Parents can also model networking by introducing children to their own professional contacts, say, taking them to meet a real estate agent to discuss property investments. Another approach is teaching kids to seek mentors, perhaps by interviewing a local entrepreneur about their journey, learning to ask questions and listen actively. Kiyosaki's own story is a testament to the power of relationships. His poor dad, isolated in academia, lacked the network to grow his wealth, relying solely on his salary. In contrast, Rich Dad built a real estate empire by partnering with bankers and brokers, using their expertise to secure favorable loans. Kiyosaki himself leaned on relationships to launch the Rich Dad Company, collaborating with co-author Sharon Lechter and investors who believed in his vision, turning $250,000 into a global brand. He also recounts mentoring a young employee, Kim, who later became his wife and business partner, showing how personal and professional relationships can intertwine to create success. Parents can foster this mindset by guiding children to value connections over competition. For instance, a teenager might organize a neighborhood car wash, learning to recruit friends and negotiate roles, building teamwork skills. Or, during a family dinner, parents can prompt a child to call a relative who owns a business, asking for advice on starting a venture. These experiences teach children to see relationships as assets, providing knowledge, support, and opportunities that a paycheck alone cannot. Kiyosaki's core message is that networking and relationships are the scaffolding of financial success. By teaching children to connect authentically, seek mentors, and collaborate, parents can equip them to build networks that not only enhance their wealth, but also enrich their lives, ensuring they thrive as C students in a connected world. 6. Risk tolerance and financial growth. Embracing uncertainty for wealth. Robert Kiyosaki emphasizes that risk tolerance is a cornerstone of financial growth, distinguishing the wealth-building C students from the risk-averse A and B students trained for academic or bureaucratic roles. He argues that schools, by rewarding caution and conformity, instill a fear of failure that stifles the bold decision-making needed for entrepreneurial success. In contrast, financial independence demands embracing calculated risks, whether through investments, business ventures, or leveraging debt, to generate assets that produce passive income. Kiyosaki urges parents to teach children to view risk not as a threat, but as an opportunity, fostering a mindset that fuels financial growth. Kiyosaki's Poor Dad epitomized risk aversion, advocating for the safety of a steady job and savings, a path that left him financially strapped as inflation eroded his earnings. His Rich Dad, however, saw risk as a gateway to wealth, teaching Kiyosaki to take calculated gambles, like buying rental properties with bank loans to create cash flow. Kiyosaki illustrates this with the 2008 financial crisis. While risk-averse, A students clung to failing jobs, C students with high risk tolerance snapped up foreclosed properties at bargain prices, turning market chaos into opportunity. He argues that schools' focus on avoiding mistakes, punishing wrong answers, conditions students to fear risk, leaving them unprepared for an economy where adaptability and boldness drive success. To build risk tolerance, Kiyosaki advises parents to create safe spaces for children to experiment with financial decisions. One practical step is playing games like cashflow, where kids can take virtual risks, such as investing in a risky stock or starting a business, learning to weigh rewards against potential losses. For example, a child might lose money on a bad investment in the game, but gain confidence in trying again. Parents can also encourage small real-world ventures, like a bake sale, where kids risk time and money to learn about profit and loss. Another approach is discussing family financial risks, such as a parent's decision to invest in a rental property, showing how research and strategy mitigate uncertainty. Kiyosaki's life offers vivid examples of risk tolerance driving growth. His poor dad avoided risks, sticking to a government job that offered no wealth-building potential. Rich Dad, however, took calculated risks, using good debt to acquire properties that generated passive income, eventually owning a Waikiki hotel. Kiyosaki himself embraced risk by launching the Rich Dad Company, investing $250,000 from others despite no publishing experience, a gamble that yielded millions when Rich Dad Poor Dad became a bestseller. His early nylon wallet business, started with minimal resources, also required risking failure to innovate, teaching him resilience and strategic thinking. Parents can nurture this mindset by encouraging calculated risks in everyday life. For instance, a teenager might invest a small allowance in a stock, learning to research and accept market fluctuations. Or, during a family real estate visit, parents can prompt a child to propose a risky but potentially profitable renovation idea, discussing how to assess its viability. By framing setbacks as lessons, parents help children see risk as a path to growth, not a dead end. Kiyosaki's message is that risk tolerance, tempered by knowledge and strategy, is essential for financial growth. By teaching children to embrace uncertainty through games, ventures, and open discussions, parents can prepare them to take bold steps toward wealth, ensuring they thrive as C students in a world that rewards courage. 7. Focus on real-world experiences, learning wealth through action. Robert Kiyosaki stresses that real-world experiences, not classroom theory, are the key to mastering financial literacy and achieving wealth. He critiques schools for prioritizing abstract knowledge, memorizing facts for tests, over practical skills needed to navigate money, investments, and entrepreneurship. This disconnect leaves A students chasing academic accolades and B students seeking bureaucratic stability, while C students, learning through hands-on action, build financial independence. Kiyosaki urges parents to immerse children in real-world experiences, teaching them to apply financial concepts in tangible ways that foster an entrepreneurial mindset. Kiyosaki's Poor Dad, an educator, believed book learning and degrees guaranteed success, yet he struggled financially, unable to translate theory into wealth. His Rich Dad, however, used real-world lessons, like playing Monopoly to teach real estate investing, showing Kiyosaki how greenhouses could become a red hotel. Kiyosaki argues that schools, by focusing on rote learning, fail to prepare students for real-world challenges like taxes, debt, or market fluctuations. He points to the 2008 financial crisis, where those with practical experience, like investors who bought distressed properties, thrived, while theoretically trained graduates floundered, burdened by student loans and job scarcity. To bridge this gap, Kiyosaki encourages parents to create real-world learning opportunities at home. One practical step is involving children in family financial activities, such as visiting a rental property to collect rent, where they see cash flow in action. For example, a child might calculate the profit after expenses, grasping the concept of passive income. Parents can also encourage entrepreneurial experiments, like a yard sale, where kids learn pricing, negotiation, and profit margins. Another approach is taking children to real-world settings, like a coin shop, to discuss gold as a hedge against inflation, making abstract economic ideas concrete. Kiyosaki's own experiences highlight the power of hands-on learning. His Poor Dad's theoretical knowledge couldn't prevent financial struggles, as he saved money that lost value. Rich Dad, however, taught Kiyosaki by having him work in his businesses, learning inventory and sales firsthand. Kiyosaki applied this in starting the Rich Dad Company, gaining practical skills in publishing and marketing to turn $250,000 into millions. Another example is his childhood lesson at age 10, collecting rent with Rich Dad, which showed him the reality of income-producing assets, far more impactful than any textbook. Parents can replicate this by integrating financial lessons into daily life. For instance, a teenager might run a small online store, learning e-commerce logistics and customer service through trial and error. Or, during a family trip to a bank, parents can have a child ask about loan terms, demystifying debt in a real setting. These experiences teach children to think like C students, applying knowledge to create wealth rather than memorizing for grades. Kiyosaki's core message is that real-world experiences are the classroom for financial success. By exposing children to practical financial activities, through ventures, family finances, or real-world interactions, parents can equip them to navigate the complexities of money with confidence, ensuring they build wealth in a world where action trumps theory. In Rich Dad's Guide to Financial Education for Parents, Robert T. Kiyosaki presents a thought-provoking perspective on the relationship between education and financial success. By examining why A students work for C students and B students work for the government, he encourages readers to rethink traditional notions of success and prioritize financial education as a pathway to wealth and independence.